Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
The Tennessee Vols go down. So big win for Ty Golden and his squad. Now they get ready to go to Kentucky, Rupp Arena on Saturday. And then the following after that, they have the Alabama Crimson Tide. So tough stretch. If they can get, they need at least one. If they can get 2 out of this stretch, that'd be great. Let's go to the Titan MR hotline. And we're joined by our college football analyst, Brent Beaird. You can follow Brent on Twitter at Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How are you, my man?
Shane, I'm doing well. It's a happy Groundhog Day. He saw his shadow, so we've got 6 more weeks of winter, which I know is the last thing you need to hear right now. But we had National Signing Day yesterday. It was almost a whisper compared to what it used to be. But look, I did want to mention the same thing you did. Tremendous win for the Gators last night. I believe they had like a 15-0 run. At some point, their net ranking is 52 right now, so that will certainly help them. But absolutely, they've got a tough stretch coming. But last night was a absolutely huge win for them.
Yes, no doubt about it. And Andy asked here on Facebook Live if I still have on my ice skates. I have not been outside since Sunday. I think Sunday afternoon was the last time I've been outside of our hotel here. We have not been able to do anything. The entire city is under ice. A parking lot looks like a skating rink. So we'll see what happens. Just meetings. That's about all you can do. Brent, college football, as you said, signing day was yesterday. I mean, really, I don't know who really signed. I know Gators signed a couple of kids. But let's go back. We're getting ready for spring ball, but also let's talk about some of the games that are going to be kicking the season off.
Yeah, week 0 is something that we enjoy. FIU at Louisiana Tech, Hawaii at Vanderbilt, so they make the trek. Remember, Vandy made it last year. Probably the headliner game is Navy versus Notre Dame in Ireland. So that'd be fun to go call that game, wouldn't it, Shane? Mm-hmm. San Jose State at Southern Cal. So Southern Cal starts the season on week 0. UMass, New Mexico State, UTEP at Jacksonville State. So those are some of your week 0. Just real quick on week 1. Now LSU and Florida State play in Orlando on Labor Day weekend. That is a Sunday night game. That is a sweet game for Sunday night. Florida, Utah, North Carolina, and South Carolina playing Charlotte, West Virginia, and Penn State also are playing. Virginia and Tennessee are playing in Nashville, which is interesting with that too. So that just a few of the early games that we can look forward to.
Brent, you cover so much college football and you have friends from all different universities. Have you heard a lot of complaining from the Florida State folks about them playing on a Sunday night? I mean, I know, well, I guess on Monday, nobody's really going to have to work. But, you know, people are still very upset for whatever reason. I can't figure it out, that the Gators are playing Utah on a Thursday night. Okay. Again, nobody at the University of Florida Athletic Association had any say in when they played Utah.
Right. No, there's, as a matter of fact, the way that the Seminole folks are looking at it is this is a Sunday night Labor Day weekend, and they basically got the nation by themselves. Now there may be another game or two on that Sunday. There often is, but all eyes are going to be on that game in Orlando. So that I think they're pretty excited about it. You hit it the next day. You don't have to go to work, so you can travel back. Look, I'm with you on the Thursday night Utah game. That's a real opportunity for Florida to basically. It's not. I mean, there'll be 20-something games easily that night, but Florida that will be a headliner. Look, I've heard more disappointment in Florida playing the spring game on Thursday night than I have the Utah game on Thursday night.
Well, I've heard that too, and I try to tell them they're doing what they think is best for the program. And I mean, it's a spring game. They don't even really keep score, so let's not worry about it. Dan says here on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon Law, the QB that didn't get a scholarship offer from Florida, referring to Marcus Stokes, ended up at West Florida, up in Pensacola.
Right.
Yeah, that whole thing's been a mess with that kid. Hopefully, it all work out for him. Also, I believe Jaden Rashada ended up at Arizona State. Well, he's committed.
That's correct.
He's committed, right? Has he signed anything?
Yeah. Good. Well, let me look at my note here. Yes, that's where he went. And I believe, and for when I'll double check this, but I'm pretty sure he signed, and he is with them. That's where a lot of quarterbacks go. Emory Jones went there for basically a cup of coffee, but yes, that is where he ended up.
If you want to make a lot of money and you're a youngster, get into college coaching, because there's some very wealthy guys that are head coaches in the college football world, a lot of $1 million, $9 or more. Want to run through those dollar figures there, Brent?
It's really amazing. An amazing list. Hey, Shane, and you probably remember this. I may be off with the figure a little bit. I remember when Coach Spurrier made, and it wasn't even that much. I mean, it was like $2 million, and people thought that that University of Florida would go bankrupt if they did that. But I mean, we've got Dabo Sweeney is 11.5, Nick Saban's 11.1, Kirby is 10.5 million, Lincoln Riley is 10 million. They're estimating that because Southern Cal is a private school. Ryan Day's 9.5. Brian Kelly is 9.5 since going to LSU and having a good year. Mel Tucker, 9.5. Jimbo is 9. Josh Heupel is now 9. Lane Kiffin is 9 million. So, Shane, if you get a job in the SEC, even for a short period of time, you're almost set for life, aren't you?
Yeah, there's no question. There's some on here that it's amazing to me that I still can't figure out why Michigan State gave Mel Tucker $9-something million. I'm surprised. I think Lane's a good coach, but I think Lane does some crazy stuff at times. But Ole Miss doesn't want to lose him, so he at $9 million is somewhat of a surprise. Brent, where do we stand with the NIL at this moment? I haven't really followed it. Obviously, you know how I feel about it. But where do we stand with NIL?
There are some individual states who are trying to come up with some NIL legislation that will help them. I mean, the NCAA is still hoping that Congress will bail them out one day. I'm not sure I would depend on that. Now, as we talked about last week, and I'll be real brief on this, the number of early entrants into the NFL last year in 2022 was 100. 2023 was 82. So the prevailing thought has been, now that people thought about this for a while, is that NIL has actually kept some guys in school. And that's one of the positive benefits out of it. But the reality is we're still trying to kind of get some reins on it and get it under control. And that's still going to be a while. I know Nick Saban, for one, was approached by some folks with one of the best cornerbacks in the nation in high school. He said they came to me and asked if we'd pay $800,000 for the player to sign here. I told them that he can find another place to play. So that is what he allegedly said at one of the coaches' convention over the last few days. So there's some good in NIL, and there's a whole lot of not so good.
Yeah. Joseph and Andy are talking about Marcus Stokes. Joseph says, the better question is, why were we going to take a QB that ended up at West Florida? I thought he had great talent assessment. He was offered a scholarship. And if you go back and you listen to, I think I said it on this show, usually you want to try to sign, most schools nowadays want to try to sign a quarterback no matter what. Just because you sign that quarterback, he may never play it down. I think sometimes when kids are rated a 4 or 5 star, which he was at one time a 4-star.
Recording in progress.
You take them
Recording
knowing
stopped.
that they may never play it down for you, but it helps the publicity and things of that nature. So I had watched him. I didn't think he would ever play it down at Florida, quite honestly. I wasn't quite sure Jaden Rashada would ever play, but that's for another story. It's so hard to evaluate quarterbacks these days, especially ones that come out of high school. Are you in the market to buy? Are you in the market to buy or sell your home? Doreen Weeby, a realtor with Caldwell Banker, Emmett Parish, will value a fast, friendly, reliable service. Give her a call today at 352-562-1411 to help your dreams come true. What were you going to say, Brent? I'm sorry.
Well, no problem. Stokes is from Ponte Vedra Beach, so he's in our area. He was an Elite 11 finalist, which is the Times Union. So I think this is one of those things to where, and hopefully he will learn from it, and we won't get into it again. But sometimes when you get on social media and you make a mistake, you've almost got to start over, and you're looking for someone to take you, and that's basically what he probably had. That was out there. So hopefully he can get there and be successful and kind of redo his image while he's there and go from there. He's 6'2", 185. I mean, he's a pretty good quarterback, frankly. So, but that's where he ended up. Okay. So wish him well there, and hopefully he can redo his image and have a successful career at West Florida.
Absolutely, Brent. You got to hear some surprise teams to look at for next year.
Yeah, and some of these are SEC teams. Saturday Down South had an interesting surprise team to look at. One of those was Mississippi State. Zach Arnett, obviously the defense coordinator, is now the head coach. They have got offense coordinator in Kevin Barbay. Now, Shane made the point, it was a astute point last week about Mississippi State, was this is not going to be the air raid anymore. They're going to try to be more balanced, which will be interesting to see how that works, because they mainly, and help me on this, Shane, they mainly use their running backs as another pair of wide receivers. So does that mean that they're going to be more run heavy? The word I've heard again is just more balanced, Shane. So there's some thoughts that with the returning talent they've got, particularly on defense, that State could be better next year than they were this year.
Yeah, I mean, they got some talent. There's no question, and I really like their quarterback. But I don't know if Will Rogers can run another system. He's never been in another system. He ran the air in high school as well. So we will see. You also, well, not you, but Saturday Down South says here they think Kentucky's another surprise team.
Well, and the reason why is they think that Liam Cohen is coming back from the NFL. If that name's familiar, he was the Kentucky offense coordinator just a few years ago before going to the NFL. Now, Will Levis is out, going to the NFL, and Devin Leary is in, the NC State quarterback. That was a real good move for Kentucky in order to get him. As a matter of fact, some folks think that Leary may be a better fit for that offense and can get rid of the ball a little bit quicker than Will Levis. But Shane, you and I talked about this a good bit over the season. Is the thing that Kentucky's got to do, along with getting Devin Leary, they've got to fix that offensive line. That was a tremendous problem for them last year, particularly with Will Levis. He was hurt most of the year because of those offensive line situations. So that's going to be very interesting to see how well they can improve.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Any other surprise teams to look at?
Arkansas is also on that list too. Now, obviously, they've got a new defensive coordinator, Travis Williams, who is coming over, and that's really where they need to improve. They certainly lost some talent defensively, ended up 7-6. KJ Jefferson comes back, so that will help them tremendously. So, and again, these are interesting stories to read this time of year as far as who may be able to come back and have a much better year. So looking a little bit at Mississippi State, Kentucky, and Arkansas.
Big 12, I believe UCF and all those guys are playing in it this year. They're supposed to be releasing the schedule, right? Yeah,
matter of fact, they did. The schedule released, I think it was, I believe, on Monday or Tuesday with that too. Interestingly, Oklahoma will play UCF, and the Sooners quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, who obviously used to be with UCF. So that's interesting. Yeah, yes, Shane, the schedule, I see that here now. It was released on Tuesday. Now, again, folks need to keep this in mind. This will be, we think this will be the last year that Oklahoma and Texas will probably be in the Big 12. I mean, it may not be. I'm not guaranteeing that, but hopefully we'll get something definitive on that by the end of the next season.
At Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today, 352-244-0840. All right, Brent, let's go around the league. Alabama, when are they going to hire their coordinators?
Well, that's a great question. They haven't yet. Ryan Grubb, who was at Washington, is the offense coordinator, did a really good job there with Penix, the quarterback, who's a outstanding quarterback. He was in this week, had a sit down with Nick Saban, but has decided to stay at Washington. Bama did get the number one recruiting class in the nation, but as we said, they're still trying to replace Pete Golding and Bill O'Brien. O'Brien went to the Patriots, and Golding went to Ole Miss. You still hear a lot of the same names. Now, Dan Mullen has pulled his name out, so he's not a possibility. You still hear Joe Brady, Jeff Lebby. Joe Brady was obviously in the NFL. Jeff Lebby with Oklahoma. And as far as Alabama defense coordinator, Jeremy Pruitt, who was at Tennessee, Jim Leonard, who's at Wisconsin, and Glenn Schumann, who is at Georgia. So maybe by the end of the week, now that recruiting is done, we may have some finality on both the coordinator hires.
Yeah, and then in Arkansas, we mentioned it, I think, last week, that Dan Enos is back there. Do you like that hire as the offense coordinator?
They like him. I know that. He did a good job with them. Now, he was at Maryland. Alabama was actually going to hire him, but he went to Miami. Didn't do real well at Miami. I mean, it's a big hire for them. But they think that he's going to really help them. Now, obviously, with KJ Jefferson, that's a good start with that. So, but he certainly has bounced around a good bit.
Anything happening on the Plains for the Auburn Tigers at the moment?
They had a good recruiting class, and the thing they mainly did was to replenish their offensive line. They badly needed to do that. Gus Malzahn did not do a really good job with the offensive line. Brian Harsin tried to add a little bit to it. So that's the biggest thing about their recruiting class. Jason Campbell is their new color analyst for radio. Stan White is left. Their spring game is April the 8th, so they'll be getting started in a few weeks for spring practice. Will certainly be very interesting to see what Hugh Freeze is able to do with his Auburn offense.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, let's talk about the Gators. The Gators, obviously, where did they end up in recruiting? I haven't seen any rankings since I've been gone. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but you know, everybody gets excited about the rankings. Where do we end up?
Oh, yeah, they do. And now this is Rivals, but it's pretty typical. They're at 13 with Rivals, 20 signees with this class. I do think this class might be better than people realize as it goes along. Now, they've got some preferred walk-ons that they're bringing in. And we don't know a lot about these folks, but I'm just going to throw their names out there. Jordan Gile and Parker Lease are two quarterbacks. I thought this was kind of amusing. They've added running back Anthony Rubio, who is the son of U.S. Senator Marco Rubio. How about that, Shane?
He's a running back?
He's a running back, yeah. This is from 24/7, and they're looking to add former Marshall commit Lane Swafford with that group too. Obviously, the spring game's April the 13th on a Thursday, as we mentioned, and congrats to the old ball coach for getting a street named after him, and that will be on February the 10th at 5:30 in basically in front of the restaurant. So I thought that was neat that he's having that honor come his way. And again, if people have not heard this, if they're just now tuning in, Jaden Rashada, Jaden Rashada is signed with Arizona State.
Yes, he has. All right, we got a text here on the Titan Mark text line from Jonathan. Jonathan wanted to get your thoughts. He's not sure if you heard Billy Napier's press conference from yesterday, but he's saying he listened to it, and he says that Billy got hammered hard with the NIL stuff.
Well, I'll be honest with you, I didn't because I was working on other things. But, I mean, look, the only thing you can say with that is right now, I think they're doing all they can do. They're learning like everybody else is. I still support that coaching staff. I still think they're going to do a really good job if given time. But I can understand the questions. Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people here say the street should be named Spurrier Pass and not Spurrier.
That's great, isn't it?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
I think they need to rename University Avenue after him, quite honestly. All right, what do we got going on with the Georgia Bulldogs?
Well, the biggest thing going on with Georgia, and again, they had a good recruiting class too. They're in the top 3 Obviously, Stetson Bennett's arrest was not a good look for him. Arrested in Dallas, public intoxication. So hopefully he would be able to work through that. The big thing for Georgia is, what does Todd Monken do? Todd Monken is interviewed with Tampa. He certainly knows about them, about being their new offensive coordinator. We all know about Tom Brady retiring and where that might go. Hopefully Kyle Trask will get a hard look in that situation. But this is really a big decision. I think Kirby Smart will throw a lot of money toward Monken to be able to keep him, but the lure of the NFL may just be too much. But no decision has been made there as of this point either. And again, if folks miss some of this, I'll mention it quickly. A.D. Mitchell is in the transfer portal, going to Texas. Ladd McConkey, the wide receiver, is coming back. Also, Cedric Van Pron on the offensive line, he is coming back. Marcus Rosemead Jack Saint is coming back. So the question for Georgia fans and for Kirby will be, over the next few months, can you win 3 in a row?
Yeah, that's very, very true. It's going to be interesting when you got guys like the Monkins of the world that have done a really good job at their job. How schools are going to keep them at the collegiate level. It's going to have to be astronomical money, in my opinion, because, as I've stated, the way of the world in college athletics right now, you would much rather go to the pros because you don't have to put up with all the nonsense of basically trying to keep your players 365 days a year. When you go to the pros, you can just coach ball, and that's it. So, we'll see. Brent, before we let you go, give us a few nuggets.
Yep, I'll be glad to be able to do that. And what Shane's talking about is we're going to quickly have coordinators who are making $2-3 million a year, which is what some head coaches don't make, but that's just the way it's going to be. Brian Kelly at LSU, they had a good class, number 6 overall. They had 5 players in the top 100. People haven't heard, John Emery is coming back at running back for LSU. That's going to be a pretty good running back room also for them. So I'm interested very much to see what that's going to be. Again, Ole Miss is going to have a very interesting quarterback room, particularly now with Walker Howard coming over from LSU, Jackson Dart, Spencer Sanders, Oklahoma State is there. Former Vanderbilt quarterback Mike Wright is headed to Mississippi State. Now, again, we know who's quarterback at Mississippi State, but you always need some backup. So I thought that was interesting that's what he's going to do. Also, South Carolina got a big-time recruit yesterday, Nicholas Harbor. He is a 5-star. Oregon and Maryland wanted him. 6'5", 225, the number 1 athlete prospect in the country, runs a 10.28 in the 100-meter dash. And again, Shane Beamer's made some noise, hasn't he, Shane? On the field and off, and with this late, he had a pretty good recruiting class. So I think they're very excited about all that's going on in Columbia right now.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Brent. Appreciate your time. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I don't know what's going on, but we've been locked down here in an ice storm since Sunday, so not a whole lot of fun. But we appreciate your time, my man, and we'll talk to you next week. Yeah,
we'll look forward to that. We'll get into a little bit more scheduling. The ACC released their schedules too. What's unusual is Miami has 2 Friday night games and a Thursday night game coming up for the Canes.
Wow, that is.
We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peaceland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise.
Campus USA Credit Union.
QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Dave & Buster's, eat, drink, play, and watch. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wibby, Realtor Caldwell Banker, MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Aver and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back. Second half of the show. Podup Matthews in the morning. Kyle Crooks filling in for Shane away on XFL duties. We're joined by a very special guest, senior writer of FloridaGators.com. That's Chris Harry. We've had the chance to have him on the pod a couple times here. And Chris, last night at the O-Dome, of course, you know, Chris follows the Gators men's basketball team very closely throughout the year. And last night, I guess you could call it a heartbreaking loss or whatever you want to call it. I don't think many people gave the Gators a chance last night. They cut it to about 2 with a minute left, Chris, and Kentucky goes on a run to end it. But overall, I think at this point, you like the effort that you're seeing out of this team right now. I don't think anybody thought it would be a 2-point game with a minute left.
No, I think if you were just a general college basketball fan sitting in front of your fireplace out in Portland, Oregon or whatever, just turning on the game. That was a pretty entertaining basketball game last night. Sure. It didn't start out that way. And all that's to Florida's credit. The Gators fell behind by 15 right out of the box. And again, it was Kentucky coming in, playing pretty damn well. They just a couple days ago, I think they held Tennessee to 19 points in the first half in a win the other day to get to where they were. Anyway, they a couple of weeks ago, Kentucky they're not going to make the tournament. Now they're beelining for one of the buys for the SEC tournament in a couple of weeks. But Florida didn't. Florida was down 15, 22-6 run in the half. Mm-hmm. Kentucky comes out in the second half, plays, has another hot start. Florida's back down by 8, come back and take the lead again, fall back by 6, come back and tie the game. So, for what it's worth, there was no quit in this team. And it had a different look than the other day, Saturday at Arkansas at that game, which was the first without Colin Castleton. Clearly there's a void in the post now. You're taking away 16 points a game, 8 rebounds a game, one of the best shot blockers in the country. And it's just going to be hard to manufacture those kind of numbers in the post for any replacement, even if it's 2 or 3 guys. From Jason Jatobo, from Alex Shimchek, from Alex Fudge. They needed elsewhere. They got some of it elsewhere. Certainly Riley Kugel is a person that Florida fans should be very excited about as far as his future goes. But, I mean, when you look down the box score, I mean, Myron Jones had 3 points. Will Richard had 5. Kyle Lofton played a pretty good game, but he had 9 points, 5 assists. But all 3 of those guys would have said, without Colin, we need to do more. And those numbers don't suggest them doing more. But again, Riley Kugel's done a lot more. I give Koasi Reeves a little bit credit. He's shown up the last few games. He's shooting the ball much better than when he was 7 for 46 to start the SEC from 3-point line. But a pretty entertaining game. And again, they had no answers on when it came to rebounding. They were out rebounded 40-21. 21 rebounds in a game. You're not winning. Yeah. 13-2 on the offensive glass. You're not winning. And this was the killer stat to me. 15-0 in second chance points. And again, 2 offensive rebounds. You're not getting, you got 2 chances to get second chance points there, but 15-0, including the absolute killer after Lofton made it 2 free throws with I believe it was 41 seconds left. They get the defensive stop. They force a bad 3-point fall away shot. The ball's right there. Chris Livingston rebound, stick back, foul, 2-point lead to 5-point lead, and just the O-dome was kind of after that. So, but again, but an effort. And Calipari said after the game, if this is how they're going to play with this coach, then they're going to be fine. And he said, I'm glad we don't have to play him again. And then coach speak, sure, he was being polite. But if better teams under Todd Golden play like this, there could be some encouraging things down the line.
You know what was interesting, Chris, too, is Shibwe, he has the outrageous field goal percentage, right? What was he, 11, 12, 25 points?
12 for 13, yep. Mm-hmm.
He only had 4 rebounds. Now,
I know.
Granted, that could be the Gators were throwing a ton of numbers, and that's a product of, you mentioned the back-breaking play in the second half. You throw a ton of numbers at Shibwe, and all of a sudden you leave other guys wide open to hit the offensive glass, and that leads to the and one. But you're seeing lineups right now, Chris, that I said last night, if you had a crystal ball and you saw some of the lineups that Todd Golden had to put out there, you'd be like, wow, the Gators are probably in some trouble. Now, granted, these are talented players, but you didn't think they'd see a whole lot of time, whether it's Shimchick, Aberdeen on the floor at the same time, Niles Lane, who's getting some run right now, which it's hard to understand why he gets playing time towards the end of last year, has the great SEC tournament game, and then all of a sudden he's back in the lineup. You just see the athleticism. I think he had 8 points last night. But those are lineups you'd never thought that you'd see from this Gator team late in the year, and maybe it pays some dividends down the road.
And then now compare that to early in the season. Trey Bonham was a DMP last night.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and Denzel Aberdeen's playing in the first half. He hadn't played in the first half all season. CJ Felder didn't play last night. Now CJ left the team for a month for some personal issues to clear up. But I think Todd is experimenting. Mike White used to use the phrase, this team is searching. I think this team is searching now too. Not Niles Lane, I think last time I'm looking at the box score right here, he was the only player who had a plus minus. I think he was +1 when he was, and that's his defense. But he's also 3 for 6 from the floor. Like you said, he had 8 points, a couple rebounds. I think he took a couple shots that maybe too early in the shot clock that weren't really shots that are his shots. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what Niles Lane's shots are if you watch him play, but I mean, he's a guy who kind of, you want the ball to kind of find him more than him to go looking for stuff. But to his credit, he answered last night. He's always going to answer on the defensive end. I think maybe at that point when they stuck him in the game, they were looking for some defense, and he responded. I think when Florida started that first comeback from 15 points in the first half, he was on the floor for a lot of that. So that's to his credit. Good for him to taking advantage of the opportunity. Yeah,
he certainly has. And, we talked a lot about, Chris, the transfers coming in. There was a lot of hype around Kyle Lofton, Andrew Nemhard type, guy who played about 38 minutes a game, St. Bonaventure. He's going to change the complexion of the offense. When you evaluate Kyle Lofton this year, what comes to mind? Like, how do you sum up his time here as a Gator? Not done yet, but how do you sum it up?
Well, I think for his career, Kyle, he was over 5 assists a game. He's probably under 4 assists a game, probably on the low end of 3 something per game right now. And I think that's a reflection as much as anything of the team's inability to make shots. That's been the complaint all season. If you complain about anything, it's lack of shot making and rebounding has been this team. But I mean, they've been fantastic in taking care of the ball most of the time. I think last night they had 2 turnovers in the first half. They had 10 for the game. They have 14 assists because they're making shots. I mean, take Colin Castleton out of the mix. This team, and this team shoots 54% in the first half, 46% in the second half. I mean, if you put that down in front of the coaches, they're going to sign those papers, right? 50% for the game, 40% from three. I mean, that was a good enough offensive performance to win the game last night. I mean, get a couple offensive rebounds, get a couple stickbacks, and those numbers are even higher. But I think Kyle, when he's in the game and the ball is, I mean, he just has a presence about him. He has command of the game. I think he's a very crafty defender. And, how many times have you seen him kind of maybe deke a defender into someone with maybe just the slightest hesitation? All of a sudden, he's to the basket making a layup. He's pretty adept at getting those reverse layups where he uses the rim to protect the ball. So a savvy player. It's a tough way for him to finish his career. I looked the other day. I think the things are the numbers are mounting. How many did he have last night? He had 33 minutes last night. He is now about 10 minutes away from becoming number 2 all time in minutes played in NCAA basketball history.
Wow, really?
Yes. And now obviously COVID has done a lot. You look down this list of all the top 5, they're all COVID guys who got free years. So a bunch of guys that you probably haven't heard: Jacob Gilliard, Richmond, Jordan Bohannon, Iowa's. But you might remember Kellen Grady last year at Kentucky. He transferred from Davidson, I think, where he broke Stephon Curry's all-time scoring record there. But all those guys are 5-year starters, like he's been a 5-year starter. So he's been a warrior for his career, and the Gators will ride with him, and he deserves to be on the floor finishing his career that way.
Yeah, unfortunate finishes, you could say, for Lofton and Castleton for sure. Celebration Point is where the Gators come to celebrate with premium brands like Nike, International Diamond Center, Dave & Buster's, Bass Pro Shop, Regal Cinemas, Visors Rooftop, and the HBC's restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. We will see you at Celebration Point, where Gators come to celebrate. Mood of, Coach Golden in the post game last night. What were some of the main messages for him? If you look at the box score, you said it. The big difference right now, the rebounding last night. What's the overall mood like of Coach Golden, who's facing this adversity here in year 1 as Gator head coach? It's tough to win in this league for sure. How's he feeling right now? What do you sense is the overall mood from him?
Well, I just think, he talked about it before the game. It's just like, you just had to compete against the team, and that competing included competing on the glass. And I don't think it was so much that they didn't compete on the glass, because you don't have those runs and come back from 15, come back from 8, come back from 7 the way they did without competing. They're just outmanned. I mean, you talked about Tshiebwe getting his 4 rebounds. Jacob Toppin had 11. Chris Livingston, the freshman who got that clutch one, he had 15.
Yeah.
so that's just 26 between those two guys. That's 5 more than Florida got totally. Yeah. So this team needs some. This team, he wants to finish out the season, but obviously they know now how to play an SEC, what it takes in the SEC. Not that he didn't know, because he was at Auburn a couple of years, but at the same, he's a very, very smart guy. Okay. Gators need some big guys. Gators need some guards who can go get shots whenever they want to. But more than anything, they need to start adding some toughness. Now they've got 2 guys coming in next year. One is a 6'9" forward. His last name is Houck. I forget his first name. I'm not in off-season mode yet, Kyle. So I apologize to you and your listeners. They also got a commitment from a 6'11" Australian kid whose father is in the Australian Rules Football Hall of Fame. Ooh. So toughness is runs in his DNA. What they love about the other kid that I mentioned, Houck, is they love his toughness. So they're going to get a baseline out of that. Now these guys aren't marquee recruits. They are in on other guys. Maybe for down the line, but it's going to be a heavy transfer portal offseason, of course. But they're looking at some marquee players for the following class that are high school players right now. But right now they want to finish strong, man, and they do want to play in a tournament of some kind just to keep building on this thing. And the last 3 games are you look at them as winnable games. They're at Vanderbilt this weekend. Vanderbilt, inexplicable loss last night at LSU. Now I say it's inexplicable, but it's not, because if you're Vanderbilt and you've been Vanderbilt the last few years, this isn't a Vanderbilt from 10 years ago. You've won 5 in a row. It's your longest winning streak in 6 years. Then you go to LSU, you probably feel pretty good about yourself. And then KJ Williams goes for 35 and 10. So that was a tough loss. So going to Vanderbilt, which came here and won just a couple weeks ago, Liam Robbins, the transfer from Minnesota, had a really good game with Colin Castleton on the floor. I think he had 32 points. He made three out of 4 from 3-point range, and he was a 21% shooter. But you're going to hit Vanderbilt, which was, like I said, playing great and probably thought it was getting itself back into the NCAA conversation a little bit. Then they go to Georgia to play the Mike White on the road game. Then they end with LSU on senior day. You look at those as winnable games, but I always say this, so does the other team. The other team says, look at Florida. They're looking at this as winnable games also. See how they finish, see what happens in the NCAA tournament. But after that, they'll start evaluating and dive right into rebuilding this team, just like he did when he got here last year.
Yeah, that'll be the fun part. And the great part about college basketball, and the exciting part, is the roster might look completely different because of the transfer portal. And
it will look completely different. Yeah.
So you're going to be looking at a whole different set of players and expectations. Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Visit them at peachlanddental.com and join us on Friday for our Peachland Dentistry JC and the QB weekend picks. Last night, you mentioned LSU beating Vanderbilt. I was watching, I don't know how much you caught on the way home, of Bama and South Carolina. Of course, Alabama's going through their whole controversy at the moment, and controversy is probably putting it pretty lightly.
I'm not sure why it's a controversy.
Yeah,
but I mean, I the only thing I know about, I watch Law and Order. Okay, so that's my expertise when it comes to that kind of stuff. But they're saying, oh, there's nothing we can do about this. Nothing's gone wrong, or he didn't do anything wrong or anything like that. But Brandon Miller was a man last night. Oh my goodness. And just took over the game at the end of regulation, at the end of overtime, got whatever he wanted. And you got to give South Carolina a lot of credit, man. They went and won at Lexington earlier this year. I don't know if you recall that. And I mean, the guy almost threw in a half-court shot at the end of the game too, or at the end of overtime. But yeah, it was a terrific game. But Alabama's loaded team. I don't know if a little bit of a post issue with them, because they rely so much on the 3-point shot. But I mean, in terms of, I'm nitpicking now, because they could easily be the #1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. But they rely a lot on the 3, like I said. But they got tons of guys that can make them, including Brandon Miller, who's probably I would say slam dunk SEC Player of the Year, first team All-American, and maybe the second or third player taken in the draft.
And it just shows, I guess, the mental fortitude of Brandon last night, given everything that's going on, and whatever he did or didn't do. But to put up 41 points on the road, where every time he touches the ball, he gets booed. I guess he's got an NBA makeup in that regard too, from a mental standpoint, where you're the most hated guy on the floor, and you're still able to drop 41, silence the crowd, and stave off an upset. I mean, that dude is, and he had the game-winning layup last night. You feel for South Carolina, because that's their season right there, because it's
no doubt
in their first year under a new head coach. That's their season, and man, they fought to the bitter end. But I mean, from my perspective, loving watching greatness, I guess you don't want to see that whole season for Alabama get torpedoed. But I think especially with the loss last night, Chris, I think their season could have gotten torpedoed. I really do, because you start to think, okay, where is their mindset after this whole situation? You lose to one of the worst teams in the league. Where do you go from there? All of a sudden, you go from the golden child to this team that everybody hates, and you lose on the road at South Carolina. I would pencil them in. You'd have to think for a Final Four, just given all of the talent they have on their team.
Yeah, and I think the farthest they've gone, they won the league 2 years ago and made it. I think were eliminated in the in Sweet 16 round, if I'm not mistaken. But last year, they took it on the chin in the first game. Yeah. I think, if I'm not mistaken, last year They lost in the first round of the SEC tournament and lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament. And so, whatever Nate Oates did, we know he got one of the best players in the country, and they got him out of Antioch, Tennessee, which must have really frothed the Vols, to take that guy from there. But he hit in the transfer portal with a couple guys like you want to do. Yes, they're gonna be a 1 seed. They'll be the favorite to win the tournament. Tennessee beat them last week. South Carolina gave them a game, so we're seeing a little bit maybe late season. I don't know the way they play. I think they're one of the 5 fastest playing teams in the country. So you don't know if that's fatigue or whatever. But Brandon Miller didn't look fatigued at all. So to your point, he handled whatever adversity was thrown at him. I heard watching the end of that game, heard Seth Greenberg saying he has a lot of Kevin Durant in him. I think that's the way he can shoot and the way he can attack. I think that's a pretty good comparison.
Yeah, absolutely. At Comfort Temp, comfort is our business. Peace of mind is our promise. Beat the summer heat and schedule your air conditioners. Tune up today, keeping you chill in the Florida heat far away. Comfort Temp Heating and Air calls today at 352-376-2366. Only a few minutes left here with Chris Harry. Appreciate your time, Chris. As you gear up for the rest of the season here, heading off to Nashville. Travel on Friday, play on Saturday evening. For those that are interested, Gator women's basketball will play tonight, Alabama at home as they round out the regular season. I'll be in Greenville next week for the SEC tournament. It's crazy how fast this season goes, Chris.
Sure is.
Yes. We'll be in Nashville, which is we were in Nashville last year for the SEC tournament. And, we got the one-off in Nashville before we head back to Greenville. But you get to enjoy Nashville not once but twice this year. And also, I'm sure you made the football road trip earlier this year. You get 3 times in Nashville in 100 years.
I actually liked the tournament moving every now and then. Now it's in Nashville for forever. I think they've signed like a 15-year contract, and it's a great place for it. Don't get me wrong. But I do like my trips to Tampa, and it was in Tampa last year. The SEC tournament had it in Florida for only the second time, and it was a short stay. And I think about last year a little bit. It was just a bizarre kind of few days because Florida went there and played A&M really. I don't know if you recall, but Hassan Diarra from Texas A&M hits the top of the key 3-pointer in overtime with I think a half second left in the game. To knock Florida out in the first round. So it was a very quick trip to Tampa last year. And then 3 days later, Mike White's gone. And this is just how things go, and not just in basketball, but in sports, I guess. So here we are. We're about to start this, like you said, it goes by fast. But 3 months from now, we're going to be talking about how fast the offseason's been for football. And Billy Napier will be going into second year. Todd Golden will be going into his second year. So it's just the cycle of what we deal with. And both of those teams are going to look significantly different than they did last year. I'm sure fans would say, good, right?
Right.
As we move on to the next thing.
So, Chris, you're around Colin all the time, too. And it's such a crappy way to end his college basketball career. I mean, he was on track to be an All-American this year and first team All-SEC, the whole deal. What's his mood like? They showed him on the bench probably every 5 seconds last night on TV. But how's he feeling? Just kind of what's his mood around the team right now?
I wish I could call this picture up real quick. But the other day, I was watching practice and just seeing Colin. Here he goes. I'm going to show you this right now. I got a picture. I took this picture. Colin's been very engaged. There he is with pulling Alex Shimchek aside. And telling him and literally hands-on kind of stuff. This is what you're going to have to do to him. This because Colin worked Oscar Tshiebwe to death in their first meeting. I think Oscar was 2 for 14 from the floor and fouled out trying to guard Colin, who I think had 25 and 9 that game or whatever. Colin really helped himself this year, and I feel terrible for him, of course, because. Todd Golden went down there and they met at a Panera in Orlando and he talked him into coming back. You don't want your senior season to end the way. So he committed and he was all in, 2 feet in a circle, as Billy Donovan used to say. And he got so much better and became a leader of the team. And to have it end like this, it's pretty devastating. But I think he's helped himself to the point where, he last year he did all the NBA stuff. I think he did it the year before also and worked out. So I think he's got a chance. I don't know if he's going to play in the NBA, but I think he's got a pretty good chance at a two-way. And if you get a two-way, then you're playing in the NBA. And if that doesn't happen for him, he's going to make a lot of money overseas because he's such a skilled big. But when I think about what people are going to say, what do you remember? He loves the Gators so much. I don't know if you've seen some of the things that have happened to him. He's on Twitter, and not very often, but when he posts, he talks about his love for this university. And it's been a dream for him to play here. And it didn't end obviously the way he wanted to, but he's going to go out on the bench and do so in the right way, supporting his teammates and doing whatever he can. Kind of like in the same kind of matter Keontae Johnson did. In a perfect world, both those guys would have been on the floor for their last games in Florida. It just didn't work out that way.
Yeah, and he's not going to have any regrets, I don't think, about transferring over to Florida, home state school for him. Final note here before we sign off: Ruse Ogre State Farm Office is a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visit ugrainsurance.com or call us at 352-240-1779. Well, Chris, really appreciate the time. And you're very gracious with your time, especially early in the morning after a game against Kentucky where you've been up writing all night. And we appreciate your insight. Go check out Chris's work on FloridaGators.com. You can go follow Chris on Twitter as well. He has links to his articles there as well. So, Chris, have a safe travels out to Nashville, and hopefully the Gators can get a couple of wins to end the regular season.
Hopefully I'll see you for an NIT run, right?
Yes, that's the hope. Chris, I appreciate you, man.
See you, Kyle.
All right, so for our producer, everybody listening today, I'll be back tomorrow. I'll be back next week, possibly. We'll see. Shane will be back tomorrow on Friday to round out Podup Matthews in the morning for another week. So for Kyle Crooks, Chris Harry, our entire crew, have a great weekend, everybody.